Hello and welcome to another episode of Transcontinental Overload. I'm Stephanie, your host, currently based in Austin, Texas. First of all, happy Halloween. I'm not the biggest Halloween person, I have to admit. I sort of feel like I overdid it for a few years, especially when we first moved to the States and the kids were younger. But I just haven't felt it so much those last few years. And then last night I picked up my daughter from a Halloween dance event, and I have to admit that I felt a little tug at my heartstrings when I saw the little kids running around in their costumes, eyes sparkling and their little bodies fizzing with excitement. And I felt a bit sad because it reminded me of things past, and yeah, it was a little bit strange. Yeah, you never know. I might get into it again at some point. I did buy some candy to put outside for trick-or-treaters. I noticed I have a few new listeners on the podcast and a few new followers on Instagram. So I thought I'd do a brief intro because I haven't done that for a while. Of course, you can also find out more on my website, www.transcontinentaloverload.com, if you haven't done that already. I'm a double expat. I was born in Germany and moved to the UK in my 20s. And then with a husband and 2 children in tow to the US in my 30s. We started in the Bay Area in California, moved across the country to Austin, Texas, then back to the UK and then back to Texas. And so it's fair to say I have a pretty substantial amount of experience when it comes to expat living, culture shock, and also reverse culture shock, and what this particular lifestyle does to a family. My guest today is also one of those people who has moved around a few times and doesn't quite feel like she belongs to just one place in the world. I am talking to Izge, who left Turkey to live in the US and is currently based in Hoboken, New Jersey. It's not her first stint in the US, as she went to college in Pennsylvania, and well, I'll let her tell you all about her journey back and forth, which stretches over a period of over 20 years. So, let's hear Izge's story. Welcome, Izge, to Transcontinental Overload. I'm very happy to have you here and hear your story. So you're currently in New Jersey.
Yes.
But you're originally from Turkey. So let's start there. Let's hear your story.
Sounds good. And thank you for having me on your podcast. I will say it was really interesting to listen to it as well, kind of thinking about what I would like to share. So a bit of myself, how I ended up in New Jersey. It's a pretty long journey, we can say. So I grew up in Turkey, but even in Turkey, I was bit of a nomad even before changing countries, right? I was born in Ankara, but my family's from south of Turkey. So they left their city when they wanted to go to college. And then we lived in different cities, ended up in Istanbul. And I used to say Istanbul was my longest stint. Like I grew up there, but spent 10 years there before moving to the US. And in Istanbul, I attended this high school that was an American high school. So it was geared to prepare you if you want to go to college in US, you could, or you could continue in Turkey. So I feel like even earlier in my life, I was presented to this fork in the road, right? And I happened to choose.
Quick question: How was that decision made? Was that your parents that pushed for that, actually, or how did that happen? I mean, how does a girl in Turkey go to an American high school?
Well, to go to an American high school, you actually have to take these like placement exams when you're out of elementary school. So it goes way back then. But it's basically, whatever grades you get, you end up in an American high school. It could be a French high school. We had a German high school, but I ended up in the American one. Of course, you have the Turkish ones too, but these are the kind of, you could say my parents were visionary in the sense that they knew they wanted me to have competence in another language, right? and you have to do it when immersed. So this was definitely a school that immerses you not only in the language but also the culture.
Yeah.
Right. And when that's the case, so I was actually one of those people. So some people knew they wanted to stay in Turkey. Some people knew they only wanted US. I actually walked both of the paths until the end. So I had an option to attend college in Turkey. And then I had an option to go to Bucknell University. And I remember at that point, my decision was more like, I can always, like, let's say I go to US and it doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. I always have the option to come back to Turkey. But if I don't try it, then I'll always regret it. Well, I tried it, and here I am, like many years later, right? And yeah, it was kind of, I always think about it like that's the first point I can say one of my major forks. And I always think about the different forks in my life, you know, what kind of a person would I be if I went the other way, you know?
Isn't that I always think it's we probably all have a version of that going on in our heads where it's that sliding doors. Have you seen the sliding doors movie? It's because it's so, you think, oh my God, if I hadn't done this tiny thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's with different countries, it's just so much more extreme. So I could totally understand where you're coming from. And that like, you know, sense of being 18 years old and deciding to go to the US could have been very different.
Yeah, actually, maybe this is too much detail, but so I went to Bucknell here, and the way I got introduced to Bucknell was I was on the volleyball team in high school, and we lived quite far from school, so I had to ask my dad. So they had an information night, you know, a recruiter was coming from Bucknell, and I remember asking him, are you available to pick me up after school? So if the answer was no, I probably would have ended up in Bucknell. So even like little things like that, you think are insignificant, but they're not. Yeah.
It's so interesting. I love exactly that. I love how those little details and tiny little things that, you know, make you choose one way. And so you ended up in Pennsylvania.
Yes. Yeah, all places. Yeah.
And with I mean that's quite a big journey for a young person. And with your family, I take it left stayed behind in Istanbul.
Yeah. Oh my God! So they stayed behind, and actually I left the day before. There was a big earthquake in Turkey in '99, so I left the day off. So I arrived in US. I get to school, and I can't reach my parents.
Oh my!
So it was kind of like, talk about starting a journey, kind of traumatized. But anyways, everyone was okay, thankfully. But it was definitely, you know, a fish out of water moment when I first arrived, because, you know, you leave Turkey. I've been to US before in high school, but obviously not by myself, and you know, not with a bunch of suitcases, and like I was tinier than I am now, so imagine that, like suitcases bigger than me. And I just remember going to getting to the campus really late at night. And, you know, I grew up in a big city, and this, you know, Bucknell is in a, you know, rural Pennsylvania, which is great if you want your kids to focus on, you know, school.
Although American college students can party anywhere, from what I hear.
Oh yeah, Bucknell is known for that, by the way. So yeah, they definitely find ways to entertain themselves. Yeah. But yeah, so it was like day and night, you know, you go to this campus, which is beautiful, but, you know, not in a big city. I'm used to living in a city of 10 million, and this is a town of 10,000 people. So that was a bit of a culture shock too. But I actually think that it helped with the adjustment, because like I said, you know, with school, your friends, like not too much to worry about. You know, learning.
There's a lot to deal with anyways, being a student and living the college, American college life, and
exactly. Yep. So so Bucknell was a really great gateway for me into the US. Like after graduating, well, I started with internships at my first job and decided to take a job with them. which took me to Central Jersey. And that was when I was like, okay, so there's more to this country, because like now I'm closer to the city. I can get to experience more of the things. And one of the things I loved is, like in New Jersey, it's very diverse. And I happened to stumble upon like this restaurant would have salsa nights, right? So like I got introduced to the Latino culture and the dancing and the music. So I would say one of my favorite things about the US is your access to different cultures, like at an arm's length, right?
Yeah.
Especially true for where I live, close to.
I'm guessing it's more the coasts, West Coast or East Coast. Yeah. I mean, there is more diversity in general, but yeah, definitely the coastal areas more so than in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I did get to experience Dallas for a year. I can speak to that a little bit later.
Oh wow, okay, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So basically you left college and started just working in the US. So it didn't at that point wasn't really tempting to go back to Turkey or
not yet. Yeah. So I guess in my head the thinking was, now that I graduated and when you come in as an international student, you're given at least a year to work, right? So I was like, let me try, let me get some experience. Even if I'm going back, I will go back with hands-on experience. And I started my career as an engineer, so you can imagine, like I was working for Motorola and like working on the cutting edge smartphones at the time. Like I won't date myself, but a
few years.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd like to think like I came here as a student with the intent to study. And then before I knew it, it was 14 years. I'm like, where did that time go? So that was actually the point that I decided to try my hand living in Turkey again, because I was like, I came here as 18 years old. I wasn't an adult in Turkey, right? So I wanted to try to be an adult in Turkey and see if I like it. And I'm pretty close with my family, so that goes without saying.
They must have been really thrilled that you decided to come back. And
I mean, they're very good at, it's always my decision, but they give me they at the time, especially when I was 18, gave me the space to make the decision. But then when you do, of course,
it's the whole roots and wings kind of thing, isn't it? Where
So but before I went back to Turkey, like I worked for a while at 2 different jobs, and then it was one of those things, you get your college education, you work, and then, I should get my master's. So I did that. And after at my job, after getting my master's, I was at that point of, all right, this is a point in life that I should make a decision. Am I staying here? If that's the decision, where am I going to try? I guess you could say kind of analogous to the college decision, right?
But so was it a gradual thing where it was always at the back of your mind, kind of thinking maybe one day I will go back? Or was it more a personal sort of feeling of, I think I'm ready to go back? Because I mean, very often it's other people that influence it. But yeah, so how was that? Because I mean, you kind of just think about working, having a job and all that. It doesn't come overnight to the thought of, I'm going to quit my job and go back to my home country. Absolutely
not. And you're right. Actually, there was an event. So actually, we lost my grandma when I was here. And it was at a time I couldn't go back for her funeral. And I was like, do I really want to miss out on some of these major things? And both happy and sad, obviously, like my funeral, might be a wedding, whatever. So that was definitely the trigger. And I had this, so I think of life as like, I remember this analogy where they talk about like life is like a stool, right? With 3 legs. So you have your family, you have your job, you might have your relationship, and maybe like I was adding having a home, for example, owning a home to that, right? And to me, like if you have 3 of the legs, you're kind of stable. But if like I wasn't super happy with my job and like this happened, and I was renting here, so I didn't really have very like strong ties to where I lived. So I was like, and families in Turkey. So it was kind of a right time to change things up and see if that was the right path for me. And it took me about 6 months, I think, to kind of find a new job and kind of decide to move and go back.
Mm-hmm. So what was that like? I mean, 14 years and very formative years to that. I mean, just thinking being 18 and that it's like you said earlier, you had never been an adult in Turkey. So you were experiencing all that, and just the finding a job, I think, is the biggest. Finding a job and kind of the whole sorting out your life, whether you're renting or whether you own a place, it's always, do that. You'd never done that in Turkey. So what was, I've written about this where I've said I'm kind of terrified of moving back to Germany because I've never lived there as an adult and I don't know how anything works. And people would look at me funny because obviously I'm German, but I wouldn't have the faintest idea how to do anything.
Well, I'm with you on that one for sure. So I was lucky that, so I mentioned my high school. So it was a small high school, and you have good it has a great network of support, both in US actually, because so many people come here, but also in Turkey. So actually I ended up with a job at one of the alums company, who then actually got acquired by Monetize. That's how our paths connected. But so on the job front, and I was turning to him more for advice. These are my options, what you think? And like, he helped me kind of weigh them. I ended up with his company. But on the life front, I had my family. So I moved in with them for a little bit. And I actually ended up buying a place there. So like, that was my first, okay, now I'm a homeowner.
Grown up. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was actually the most grown up I felt, for sure. So yeah, I definitely had the support system. So if I didn't have that, it would be much more difficult. And having said that, I'll be honest, I did struggle in terms of, I mean, the first job was good, but working in Turkey was definitely very different, like different attitudes, different mentalities. Like here, it's like you do your job, you're good at it, you're good, right? There, it's like you need to be more aware of politics, and I'm like, this is too complicated for me. So that was definitely one of my learnings, and one of the things I can compare between the two countries. So.
Do you feel like they would? I mean, obviously, they must have appreciated your international experience, like having lived and studied abroad and all that. But do you also feel like it was like people looked at you funny because you didn't know how to do certain things and they were expecting you to know, that kind of thing?
Maybe, actually, because I think there is definitely a factor of like belonging. So obviously I was different, right? Like I had a very different experience. I walked a very different path. The first job I got was the closest to being around people who had similar backgrounds in terms of like, they actually actively tried to, if anyone was moving back, they were trying to prepare a good environment that they can thrive. So, but in other places that definitely stood out in terms of, okay, so you don't know how to deal with these kind of like politics. And I think it was pretty obvious that I was lacking some of the Turkish way of working, if you will.
Yeah, it's such a tricky path, I think, to sometimes. Absolutely. On the one hand, it's great that you have this other experience, but on the other hand, it's not, and it's always easier with people who have had similar experiences and just there's more understanding.
Yeah,
it can be. It's so when you feel like you belong, you've got one leg in this country and the other leg in the other country, and so it's that weird existence where you're like, yeah, I can be both, and people are like, no.
And then what happens is when you realize that, you like, I found this funny after the fact, but like I ended up gravitating towards other expats in Turkey because, you know, like I felt like I had more in common in terms of how I think, or like how I'm experiencing some of the things in Turkey than, you know, someone who's never lived abroad. So yeah, so I'm forever on this, you know, the world citizen group, if you will.
Oh,
not
I know
Turkish,
exactly
not
what you mean.
Yeah, exactly.
And the ability to look at both countries from the outside, from an outsider's point of view. So you can look at your own country, but from a completely different angle.
That's true.
Okay, so you're in Turkey, and then you've got your house. You basically, your life is now in Turkey, and then. And then,
so, you know, I was actually, one thing I tried to do was stick with my ways here in terms of like, I was playing soccer, like trying to dance salsa, which helps when I discovered this even when moving to Dallas. Like if you continue with your things to do, it's actually easy to kind of embed into that community. But then I actually met my now husband, actually again through my expat friends that, you know, we happened to like play in a team together at a, you know, friend's birthday, which was interesting because the thing that was, you know, dating, I will say, was hard as well when you first go back, especially if with someone who's never been exposed to a different culture. And what really kind of one of the commonalities with Omar was he actually did live in the US for 2 years. So he got me, you know, like things that might feel kind of off to other people. We're like, oh, okay. Like I know where this is coming from, you know?
Yeah. So important.
Yeah. So we got married, and then actually, and I will say, okay, let me take a step back. So I mentioned some of the reasons of wanting to move back was the family issues, right? Family events. But at the time, there was also some, like, there's this thing called Gezi Parkı, like the youth was starting to protest against the current government. And it was like, oh, it feels like there's some change that's possible, because basically we have a guy who's been in power for 17 years. My poor sister hasn't seen anyone else in power. So and part of my thinking was, well, maybe there is a role for me in that change as well. And I feel like there are some of the people at the time that moved back, I can definitely say more people moved back around that same time. And then things started going down again, and like there was a coup attempt, and like the guy in power started to keep more power. So it got to a point, like, especially when you have a family, like, would I want to, you know, raise a family here or things like that. So that's when when things started to go down a little more, and we're like, okay, so maybe we should start thinking about what does life in US look like for us. So all of that started the pendulum swinging back.
But that can't have been easy, because I can understand it, also the sense of feeling like there's change in the air and wanting to be part of that. And maybe, you know, that whole that idealistic view of maybe I can be part of this and I can help my country make this change and be really involved in it, and kind of get that sense of, that's now my decision to move back. There's a reason that I'm here, and I can be part of it, and how amazing. And then living through that and experiencing it's not working, and it's not making me happy, it's making me worried. And so but that can't have been easy to then think maybe we should move back to the US.
Exactly. I mean, especially like I mentioned, part of my consideration was family. So being away for 14 years, then getting that sense of being so, like, we actually lived 2 streets apart. So go from being a continent apart to 2 streets apart. I absolutely, like, I really appreciated the newfound connection with my family, especially, I think I mentioned, so my sister was 6 when I left for college. So, you can only build so much connection over the summers or over digital channels, if you will. But so that really gave me a chance to connect with her at a deeper level. So if for nothing else, I feel like that's one of the wins of my stint in back to Turkey.
So how long was that stint in the end?
6 years. So I moved back, actually, I say February to February. I moved back February 14 and we were back February 2020, right before the pandemic.
Yeah, there is that. You're one of those moving to a new place. Not completely new, because I mean you're back in New Jersey, so you were familiar with at least the area and the weather, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I mean, but still not a great time to move and try and explore a new place.
It's actually funny. So I did live in Hoboken before I moved back. I changed, I think I had 2 places in Hoboken, but the first one I was at was 1220. And then we ended up finding this rental on 1222. So I actually moved right next door to where I was. So it's like, talk about 360, so that's a bit extreme in some cases. But I mean, it was deliberate in the sense that there's already so much change, especially, for my husband. Yes, he lived in Chicago, but he's new to this city. Yeah. He's new to, this new setup. And so in some way, I think this really helped minimize some of the change. It did feel like moving home. I have some of my best friends living 2 blocks away. So talk
Amazing.
About moral
having
support.
A network again. So that sounds like you've kind of you're lucky in that you could go back to in both cases, go back to Turkey and have a network and come back here and have a network, because especially with the pandemic, I cannot imagine what it's like to move somewhere and then not be able to go out. And
that was quite intense. But I mean, I think what helped everyone during the pandemic was having their little pods.
Having just a very small pod of people around you is actually, and I think we've all learned this during the pandemic, much more valuable than having access to everything. And then just kind of it's sometimes much harder to try and find the people if you can do everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I can say that so I went to grad school here at NYU. So, I had a huge group of school friends. Every weekend it was a group, big group of gathering somewhere, either dinner, doing something. And moving back, you realize it's really hard to keep that many relationships intact. You can have weak links, but it's really hard to keep the strong ones. So I think at least I learned to focus on the strong few ones. And like cherish that.
Yes. And you realize that you don't actually need to be in touch with everyone and stay in touch.
Exactly.
But still, I mean, it can't have been easy. And then you leaving your family in Turkey after all that time, and then coming and then not being able to go back to Turkey for ages to see them, because you moved and then it's like all the borders are shut and there is no way you can see anyone, or they can't come see you. And I mean, no one's been able to come and see us for ages. That's only starting again, hopefully soon. But so that must have been also a bit of a shock.
It was, because part of my justification of moving back and like choosing to move to the East Coast was like, so much easier. It's a 9-hour direct flight. I'll do it so often. And before you know it, luckily this summer I did go back, but this was the longest I haven't seen them for a year and a half. So
it's the same for us.
That was not expected at all, which made things harder. Although I think we talk about Zoom fatigue, but compared to my previous time here, like I feel a lot more connected to both my family and my friends who remained in Turkey. And I think part of it is during COVID, like even if you lived in the city, you had to interact digitally, right? So when that happened, like I was interacting with my family probably as much as I would any other time. So I don't know if you call it a blessing in disguise, but things are much smoother, I will say, this time around in terms of keeping in touch with family.
Yeah, I find it's mainly for those people who are not really used to conducting a relationship via FaceTime and Zoom. I think a lot of people all of a sudden realized that you could do that. And I feel like we've been doing that for years and years and years, you know, and we're used to it. And everyone else is like, oh, this is fun. It's like, yeah, you know, exactly. that's the only way you can do it. And so that for everyone else to have that experience was kind of good. So yeah, they all of a sudden got better at
the world is flattened even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny kind of experts around the world are like, oh, finally.
See.
Yeah.
Even the way people think about those digital interactions changed, I feel like, because it was like before it was like, oh, you know, my granddaughter's calling from the US, so they would try to keep it short. It's like, who are you? Now it's like you can be on FaceTime or WhatsApp for hours, like put it on your breakfast table and have a meal together and things like that. Or like I think even the expectations changed in terms of how we interact.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you said earlier that you lived in Dallas as well. When was that? When did that happen?
So this was actually right after I finished grad school, and I was, you know, looking to change jobs. And this job said, you know, the hiring manager was in Dallas, and they said, can you be there at least for a year? Because I wasn't looking to leave New York. But my take on it was, what do I got to lose? You know, go try it for a year, experience Texas, and come back. Like, actually, I remember talking to one of my best friends I told you lives around the corner, and I was kind of in between, like, do I want to leave the area? But what it came down to is, if nothing else, is just enriching my life, right? I'll have stories to tell from Texas, which I sure do. And then I can actually interact, like relate to people from Texas a little better, even though I think Dallas is still like more cosmopolitan than maybe other parts. Like even if you drive an hour west, it's different. But yeah, it was, it was an experience, I will say. Well,
any stories from that time?
Yeah, so one of the things that makes me chuckle is like the part of the reason I love being in and around New York is like I say the city's made for people, right? You know, the sidewalks are wide, you know, you can use public transportation, you're not tied to a car. So when I moved, I was like, I was trying to find a place to live, and I was asking the realtor, like, where are some of the places you can live that's, you know, has walking distance things. And one of the things they said is like, only tourists and homeless people walk in Dallas. I was like, okay, that's odd, but I still got a place in downtown Dallas. But I was quick to find out why, because the summer I was there was the hottest summer. Like it didn't go under 100 for 100 days straight. So 100 or above. And
no one is walking.
You definitely don't want to be walking in that. Like when I got there, I was like, oh, there's a pool. It's awesome. I'll be in the pool all the time. In the summer, you can't be in the pool because it's too hot. So it was kind of interesting. And the other thing was the sizes of houses, right? Like I moved from living, actually before I moved there, I had a roommate here in Hoboken. So moving from a 1-bedroom to like, I was like, can you find me smaller places? Because everything they're showing me is like 3 bedrooms. Like, I don't have furniture to fill this, and it's going to be really depressing if I don't fill it. So yeah, the smallest they could find was like still bigger than our 2-bedroom here that we live here. So,
Yep, Texas.
yeah, that's
The
Texas.
amount of space is ridiculous coming from Europe.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is more about expats, but I remember like they were telling me people were moving out of their houses after 3 years because like it was built 3 years ago and they thought it was old now. So they were moving to new development because there was so much new development going on and they were expanding all sides. In all directions. So it's definitely a different mindset where like we live in 120-year building here. So.
Yeah, and that's still probably not that old compared to Europe.
Europe, exactly.
I'm always like comparing it to the UK where when we said our house is old, it was built in 79. People like, what 1779? It's like, no.
Exactly.
Here it's considered an old place.
Exactly.
Yeah, so true. That's crazy. And so Texas was that was for a year, and you knew you were going to go back to New York,
to Hoboken again, actually.
Okay.
So that was again. So I did the Texas stint. I moved back here, and that was around the time. So I lived in Hoboken again for 2 more years before I decided to move back to Turkey. And I think that move really helps because it shows you that, I mean, Texas is not that close, right? So it's not transcontinental, but it's, halfway across the continent.
Could as well be a different country. But that's, I feel, I mean, growing up in Europe, people we're always talking about America, like the Americans as this one unit. And it's just not like that really. And just the diversity in not only, nature, landscape, cities, but just the people. It's huge. Yeah. So I've really learned this during our time here, how there's just, you can't just say it's just one country, really. It's impossible. It's, I mean, you can't do that with smaller places either. It's like the, people in Germany, that Southerners are very different from the Northerners, but I think here it's much more diverse, and
almost every state feels like a different country at times.
Completely. And so definitely a different, I mean, we all know Texas is for sure a different country.
I mean, I will say, for example, in Texas, I got the "so where are you really from" question more there than I have ever in the East Coast. So there's definitely a bit of a what should I call it, like being in and around so many different cultures makes you like, you don't blink, right? Like you don't talk to the people here in New York area that you talk to a person. You don't talk to this Turkish woman, or you don't talk to this German woman who's married to So I think you see some of that difference as well when you're in different parts of the country.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the accent thing as well is always a like,
definitely.
Where's that? Where are
you
your
from? Accent is so good, but like underlying messages, you have an accent.
Yeah, and the accent, it's such a big thing anyway, because I mean, when we first moved to the US, everyone's like, "Oh wow, your accent." And I was like, "I don't have the you're the one with the accent." Exactly. So it's like I could look at it from both sides. So would you say, I mean, if I don't even know which country to ask this question now, but if is there anything that before you went back to Turkey, that you thought you'd handled, thinking about Turkey after 14 years away and going back, did you expect to feel the way you did, or was there anything that completely surprised you, where you just felt like, I have no idea what this place is?
Actually, I think I got pretty good at adapting to change through my experience here. So in that sense, I think I did good adjusting to that change. But it definitely, made me realize what I appreciate in places I live. I mean, people used to ask me, so what do you miss about the US? And like, this example probably will sound silly, but I'm like, I miss the sidewalks, because I like, going back to my comments about like, New York is a 10 plus million city, Istanbul is a 10 plus million city. This one is built for people, and that one is built for cars and buildings. So it became very clear that it might sound small, but those are the things that impact your quality of life, right? Not being on the edge every second, like is the car gonna run you over on the crosswalk, or like, can you step into the street here and like everyone stops? Like, you think little things maybe, but they add up, right, in terms of your approach to life in general. And the other thing that I was kind of sad to see is like, maybe people think of like American people are kind of chirpy and like happy. That's a great thing, because I was realizing, like, commuting to work, taking the subway in Turkey, like people were not smiling, which actually kind of I don't want to say bothered me, but like made me sad for them, because like, why not? You know, you should start your day a little happier than hopefully how people seemed. But
it's amazing how you get used to it, isn't it? Like, just general friendliness.
Exactly. You know. Like, you don't lose anything by smiling at someone else.
Politeness. Yeah.
Exactly. And I feel like that actually feeds into your first interactions with anyone. When you're tense, if there's an event, your first reaction is to continue the tenseness, versus like if you're more on a, you know, accepting mindset, I guess, like it's easier to de-escalate, I think. So.
And anything you didn't miss about the US that we're like, thank goodness I've left that behind? Or maybe we should phrase it in a more positive way and say, what did you really appreciate about being in Turkey and that you didn't get in the US?
Okay. So I can now talk about food. So
of course it's going to be food.
So like, there's always the food factor, and there's always, so I think I'm further spoiled that. So I mentioned my family is from south of Turkey. Everything's fresh. Like, you go to this farmer's market, like everything's picked up from the fields that day, versus like here, especially if you shop at the supermarket, it's plastic, and like you might have the color, but definitely not the smell and the taste. So I definitely appreciated going back to that. And part of it is, of course, like the different foods my mom makes or my grandma makes. And actually, I remember one of your questions, like, what are some of your go-to things when you feel homesick? And I think my family was getting a kick out of the weird things I started making. Like, they would never think about making, right? But to me, it was like, this is what my grandma made like 10 years ago or something like that. So definitely that food is definitely one of the things that I think binds us together, both as families, but also culturally.
I love that. Isn't it interesting? Also, I'm thinking, it's like I find myself thinking, and I'm not a cook, I really just don't get, but even I fantasize about making some like real German food from time to time, where it's like, my husband, if he listens to this, he's gonna be laughing, because he's like, where is it? When are you gonna make it? Because I think, I mean, the probably I can count the times I've actually made a German dish. I can count on one hand. in throughout our whole marriage, but more and more now, I feel I crave that connection to my family, my culture through food. I do bake. I make German cakes. So, but and it's that exactly that sense of, this is what my grandma made, and this is, you know, and the flavors and the taste of it, and so it's a really strong, you know, sensory thing. So is there like a go-to dish that you make when you really miss Turkey? And
so there are two. One is I haven't made manta is the Turkish dumplings, and it actually has another kind of tie to my family. So every time my dad would come to visit, he would actually help me make some, and we would freeze it. So that's like, to me, like almost
a big tradition.
And hopefully he'll get to visit again soon, and we can do that again. And the other one, that's like the one I was saying, it's weird, is like, I remember visiting my grandma, and I really liked stuffed intestines. And I was like one of the few people in the family who really liked it, actually. So she would like, and this, like this old lady is laboring away, because it's a pretty labor intensive thing. So I tried making that here, and it kind of turned out well. I was like,
wow. So where do you go for that? Where do you find the ingredients?
It was kind of happenstance too. Like when this was actually when I lived in Central Jersey, I came across a butcher, which and it was like a halal butcher, like because they also keep the other parts of the animal. And so I was like, oh, look, they sell this. And so seeing that actually also kind of triggered, okay, I can make this now. So take that. And I think part of it is, I think we are pretty lucky on the East Coast that, I have my Turkish grocery shop like 10 minutes away. And I actually used to, like, every time I visited Turkey, especially when I was going to school in Pennsylvania, half of the suitcase would be food, because I'm like, I need my cheese, I need my like pepper paste. And so I think actually I will say this time around it feels even more seamless, because I think there are more people who moved after, compared to when I used to live here, more Turkish people live here. So I think then people cater to that as well.
The community is growing, and people's awareness, and I think that's a general thing. And we kind of hinted at that. It's like with the older you get and the longer you've been away, the more you kind of crave that. Somehow trying to maintain the traditions and food. I mean, it's the obvious thing. But it's also nice for you to kind of, because I'm thinking your husband too, so that's something you can share, where you both
we like the same things, thankfully. So when I make what might seem like a weird Turkish dish, he actually appreciates that. So but I was gonna add, so when you said it's a tradition, for example, there's this one dish, again, very labor intensive. So right now it passed from my grandma to my aunts, not even the younger sisters, right? But one of my things, hopefully sometime soon, is to try to pick that talent up as well, because I feel like that's definitely, and it's called içli köfte, which is stuffed meatball, but it doesn't really translate well. But anyways, it's very labor intensive, like I said, but it's a very essential dish to our tradition in south of Turkey. So when I get that, I will
sounds delicious.
I actually they sell it frozen in Trader Joe's. If you have a Trader Joe's, I can tell you what to get. It's not as good.
Trader Joe's is amazing.
Amazing.
I mean, so many, if you kind of think about how small it actually is, but the things they do have are surprising. So that's really funny. So that's kind of I buy their frozen pretzels because they're actually not bad.
I tried the the Portuguese they sell that frozen.
Oh wow, I haven't seen those in our Trader Joe's, but again, we have different
that's true, actually,
selections, I think, depending on where you are in the country, for sure. But it's a very nice go-to kind of quick fix sort of thing if you don't fancy the really labor intensive thing. But sometimes you have to do the whole thing, go through the whole thing in order to really fully experience it. Oh, I love it. But food is an amazing thing to help us feel connected.
Absolutely.
Any other Turkish things that you feel like you've taken with you and that you may not have experienced had you not gone back to Turkey during those years?
Let me think.
Do you feel it's just not as clear cut now because you
No,
are this
I'm
person
just like
who
weird
has
yeah,
because
because
I feel the same way sometimes when people say what German things do you, and I'm like I don't really know. And also Germany has changed a lot in the 23 years that I've not been lived there.
I mean,
it's a very
I will
different place.
say in some hand, we travel yearly, but in one hand, I even think about Hoboken in New York area. Like I moved back 2014. I visited, was it once or twice? Just the New York area. I've been to other parts, but like the cityscape changed so much. And same in Istanbul. And it's kind of like if you're not constantly plugged into that, that change can feel overwhelming because it's you think you left it in 99, but really you didn't, right? Like it didn't stop. Like it's so far from that. And I can't think of anything that's more Turkish about me. I don't know. I'm this mixed person now.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. It's a funny thing because it's impossible to describe, but at the same time I kind of also feel like, well, we are both in this country, and especially I think the US, it's because it's there's so many like us. There's so many people like us who have family all over the world, and parents from different places and grandparents from yet another place. But I kind of feel like this is what American citizens are.
Yeah, exactly. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I know you have two young daughters, and I'm just curious,
not so young now.
That's true.
Yeah.
But like, are you seeing? Do you basically? I'm just wondering, are they feeling closer to one of the other countries, or are they fully American?
That's such a loaded question.
You don't have to answer it.
Yeah,
I
think they feel also like you just said, you don't really know who you are, because they don't have that sense of, they have some roots in Europe for sure, and I don't think would ever call themselves American. And yet they're more American than European.
Yeah.
And they don't really know it, but because they've spent the last 11 years in this country, which is a huge part of their childhood and adolescence. But because of the heritage, they're the classic case of my parents are immigrants. And they, I think, would do well going back to Europe, going to maybe to college or work, and would feel at home there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? I kind of feel like with them, I have no idea what their long-term plans are. And I almost want to say they don't really have those because of their upbringing, because they've seen us go through so many changes and
so many possibilities.
So many possibilities. And I think, for them, I'm fully expecting them to be in completely different parts of the world at some point. And who knows? It's just a very different upbringing, I guess, to what our friends in Europe have had.
That's true. I will share though, one thing I did notice, I guess it's a pattern. I mentioned some of the family I made here in the US, right? And some of them I met in college, some of them in grad school, some of them through work. They're either first generation, meaning their parents moved here, or they moved when they were very young. They're a lot more American than I am, born here, but they still have that kind of some tie to another culture. So I don't know if it's, I don't think it was a deliberate choice, but I think you kind of get closer to each other, maybe because of the way you were brought up, or I don't know. So I feel like there is a group of people that's beyond nationality and beyond, you could be Indian or Filipino or Turkish, but we actually have a lot more in common than a Turkish person.
And I think it's just that life experience and just being exposed to different cultures and languages and all that early on, it automatically makes you, I think, I don't know, maybe just more empathetic.
Yes, I think
so. So that's just something that comes with the territory. And I mean, my older one speaks with a British accent.
Yeah, there you go.
So she's maintained that the whole time. She sounds a little bit more. It kind of softens when she's with her Texan friends, but she's for sure that's part of who she is. And she was convinced she was going to go back to England to go to college, and then changed her mind for now. But
the possibilities are there.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I feel like I want to talk to them in a couple of years' time. See what their ideas are.
Let's see where they end up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been really, really fun talking to you, Izge. Thank you so much for taking the time in the middle of your workday. So much appreciated.
This was great. I mean, I was really looking forward to it. And like I said, knowing that I was going to talk to you, listening to your other episodes, was really awesome as well, and realized there are a lot more of us nomads out there.
There's so many, exactly, and sharing our stories is just nice. And people always, I love listening to other people's stories and ideas and perceptions as well. It was always something to pick up. Thank you so much
for having me. Thank you.
So that was my conversation with Izge. The timing was absolutely perfect, as I actually met her in person about a week after we did our interview, which was really nice, because I felt that I totally knew her already. It's amazing what you can learn about a person in a couple of hours, even if it's only via Zoom. And that's actually one of the best things, the things I really, really love the most about doing this podcast. I've met so many people over the last 18 plus months, made so many connections, and I feel like I've become part of this huge community of expats and nomads, and I love that. Sharing our stories, connecting through shared experiences has been really enriching, and I feel like wherever I might end up in the world, there'll be someone I already know. And I'm actually about to meet another one of those connections in person next week. But I'll tell you more about that another time. For now, happy Halloween. Stay safe out there, especially if you're out trick-or-treating or are planning other Halloween shenanigans. I'll see you next time.